All right. I have no idea how that. I just glanced and went, oh, the stream somehow ended. I apologize. Hopefully, one of our tech geniuses can combine this and point out where Garrett did something stupid. Another maneuvering flaps? Um, I'm very confused by that second maneuvering flaps. It's not cumulative, so he's not going to be able to get the power, get extra power from each flaps. That feels like a mistake by Joe. That feels like a waste of a card. Like you're running multiple maneuvering flaps because you need to get them early and you want to have them. Yeah, maybe. That's the thing is, if Pat alters it, he's going to wait until like right after Joe has used it, and then he'll wait till deploy, so Joe can't then use the other one. So I guess I just think maybe you hold it in hand then, unless he's worried about like Monarch or something. I understand running two of them. I understand being scared of the altar. I think Pat's a smart enough player. He's not going to alter him at a bad time, so he's going to use it. And there we do see as someone who loves you go from hand. So Joe did have some of the cards I didn't necessarily expect. You know, Bausch undercover at Vader's side is cute. Um, Fairly non-impactful right now. Like that might just be Joe saying, "Well, I'm going to set this up to do something with it later because of the profit objective. Pat can't drain there anyways." So Pat goes for a docking bay and misses. He's got 18 force. Um, at some point, I think you need to flip. I think you need to get your flip in play and try and hold on to it. You got 12 cards. You got 18 force. Joe's only got 8 cards in hand. Like they're yeah, I agree. The Bausch is a setup play. That's what I said. It's you're not doing anything with it right now, but you're getting her out of your hand so you can do something with it later. You're slightly worried about like a sniper, but that'd be a really odd card for ROPS to play. Like if ROPS is played in out of battle phase removal, especially this version, it's probably tramples. And so you're not really going to do a lot with right now Vader's basically just sitting staring at Leia. Leia's blocking a drain Vader can't do anyways, but it sets up for a later, okay, I'm going to do something with Leia. Either, free him, break cover and someone who loves you, and then run away or something along those lines. Like there's an attempt to do something there. All right, so Pat does say, all right, I'm gonna go for the flip as he drops Tempest Scout 3 with Lieutenant Arnett. Um, Arnett will be, now he's got Drawing Battle Destiny with it because he's got ability 4 and he can react all over. Janice to the desert, who's just a cycle ability 4. I expect we'll see the Scout 1 and Endicott, or Scout 5 and Endicott move over. And there's your flip. Yep, there Endicott moves over. I think you move Scout 1 as well. I don't think there's any reason not to. You don't need that much force anymore. Like 14 is still more than sufficient. I mean, honest, I wouldn't hate Janice can't move away from the desert. I'm like, I wouldn't hate moving Janice away, but he can't. You are sitting on the Gick. You're perfectly willing to sit on this Gick for a minute, force Joe to do something to you. One card Pat's definitely running a couple copies of that's going to be probably utterly worthless is Imperial Barrier. You can't bury your vehicles, so I would not be at all surprised to see Pat throw that away sooner rather than later. The likelihood of it being a super benefit or super impactful card is low, and we see Joe does activate the maneuvering flaps, so I'm not sure why he activated the second one. Yeah, that's those are some flappy speeders going on. Um, I don't know. That feels like a waste of one force. Granted, it's not like he needs it. And again, maybe that's why, in case if Pat does alter one of them, he's got them both in play. Um, okay, so we see some Rebel Snowspeeders coming down on Janice. That's fine. Like, right now, it's a bunch of power on Janice. Janice is drawing a Battle Destiny and is going to be +3. So he's probably killing 2 Snowspeeders, and that's really what Joe has to kind of worry about is Pat's got 12 cards in hand. He's going to have 20 force next turn, and he can go get any card in his reserve deck with ROPS. Like, if Pat draws a good draw here, you might be left with like one Rebel Landspeeder sitting there, and that's a scary thought. Like, even if you've just got, oh, I've got the Landspeeder and Hark, like, you know, this is going to be a game where there's probably going to be a beat, a rebeat, and then a re-rebeat, and that re-rebeat is what Pat needs to worry about. Because his Gick is going to get drawn out here. I don't actually think he's too worried about that. Like, okay, draw my Gick, fine. Like, I doubt he even reacts over with anybody. There's absolutely no point. You can't react over enough power that you're not just wiping it and gicking it anyways. So instead of wasting that, just, all right, Janice dies, you get the whole darn thing and move on. And I think Joe probably knows that that's also Pat's thought process, so he's got to decide. Yeah, he says, I'm not going to battle Janice right now. There's no benefit to me battling Janice. Instead, I'm going to move some speeders over. Plays a throw me another charge to take an automated weapon. What? I don't know what automated weapon he's thinking about, but Pat just says, yeah, you're not getting a 6. Like, I don't really care what you're doing. You're not cycling a 6 on me. And that, I think, is real smart. Like, it's a weird card. Like, I don't care about what automated weapon, and we see that there wasn't one, and I'm not sure what, Joe probably just has he might have an on the edge or two in there, and he's trying to kind of use the throw me another charge plus fall of a legend, which are just easily cyclable 6s that don't have a condition you need, like a few maneuvers or anything else, where you just go, all right, well, I'll search for something that ain't there. Like, I can never finding those automated weapons. So Pat activates his 13. Like I said, it gives him 18 force to play with and an 11 card hand. This is piles of things. And the drain for one at Rendilly, which is okay, whatever. Like, Joe only drew up to 7. I think Joe might be trying to dodge a Monarch, because I would have thought he would have drawn a few more there, and he might be running into. He's a little worried about Monarch just completely obliterating his hand, and if Pat's got it, that's going to be a brutal. That could be an absolutely brutal hit. We'll see what he does here, though. Endicott forfeits for like 5. I wouldn't necessarily hate seeing him go after the docking bay a little bit, because you're drawing a +3 to Battle Destiny. Each of those land speeders is forfeit 6. So if you draw a 4, 5, or 6, and there's decent Destiny in that deck, you're killing them both. Like, that might not be the worst idea for Pat to do. Let's see. It depends a lot on what's in his hand. Like, he's going to want to have enough power that he's just forfeiting Endicott to come back. And Endicott forfeits for, he's going to forfeit for 5. So, which is fine. Like, again, you're not doing a lot with it. And, like, you can't move Janice away because it's the desert. So you're eventually just going to have to get that battle. But, like, Joe piled a bunch of guys there. And really, it's the Hark Seth that Joe put there who's going to be real annoying, because he's at a battleground. He can cancel a drain. He can basically, it could be worse, the drains at the adjacent sites. So you stick him at the desert and say, all right, I'm going to block some drains. And Pat doesn't have a lot he can do about it. But at the same time, like we talked about, the speeders deck isn't innately doing much damage. Like, there's functionally 0 damage this speeders deck is doing right now. And that's potentially going to create a problem for Joe. Like, if Pat can keep just steady doing some damage, that's good. You know, and Pat might be trying to decide about, does he want to go after the battle because you pop Leia, someone who loves you, and retrieve 5. Like, okay, you killed the speeders and he just got them back. And now you're chasing around Han and Leia somewhere, which is still not necessarily ideal. There's still a lot of moving parts right now, and ROPS is kind of the master of moving parts. It's a deck that plays so many options. You can do so much with it. You try and do, you're trying to find the right answer to the question that's being asked, because you have all the answers. It's just putting them all together at times can be mildly difficult. So let's see what Pat's got 15 cards in force and 12 cards in hand. There is no way he is not deploying things. It's just a question of what. And depending on what he has, I wouldn't necessarily hate seeing a ship at routes here with a Imperial pilot just get an extra +1 to those battle destinies. Like, that's really the thing, is once you start cranking those battle destinies nice and high, it can get real tough to deal with, even with super high forfeit guys. And we see Pat apparently likes my idea. There's Zuckuss and Misthunter with Navy Trooper Fencin. So he was playing around with some of the Navy Trooper stuff, and then subtracts 3 from the force opponent retrieves for on and off the edge. That could be a really obnoxious card if Joe was counting on some on the edge action, because I don't think Joe's got an answer for that. And we see one of the DS61 boys, I believe it's DS61-2, jump on Tempest Scout 5 as a pilot. Those guys are gorgeous in this version of ROPS. Oh, Janice can move from the desert? Oh, okay. I forgot you couldn't move. You could move from the desert. All right. So, like I said, the DS61 boys are amazing because they're +3 pilots. They're great on the walkers. They forfeit for 5 or 6 with arrest order. They're Imperials, so they bump your battle destiny with ROPS. Like, they're just a awesome all around. You're like, okay, I like these guys, and you're happy to have them. Now let's see what Joe does here. So Joe activates. He flapped. He's not doing. He can't drain. I mean, it's the drain of 0 at the desert. Throws a couple more snow speeders down there. Okay. Like, this is kind of what Pat had to worry about, is he's going to end up losing a couple guys here, but he's still adding 3 to his battle destiny. You've got, Endicott plus Janice is 10 forfeit, and you're still left with the ability to draw battle destiny. And Joe just says, all right, I'm just going to pick some up as well. So Joe's trying to kind of slow build and just hit the point where he says, all right, I have 4 or 5 speeders at every Routier location. Do something. And he left a bunch of force. All right, so he signals for a card. I mean, he left a bunch of force because he did draw up to 11. So signals and goes and gets order to engage, which is going to be the killer here for Pat if he can't do anything. And now Pat goes for a Lost Monarch. See, Lost in the Wilderness, Somebody Loves You, Honor, Portal, It's a Trap, Luke with Saber, Bausch, Rebel Barrier, It Could Be Worse, Let's Keep a Little Optimism, and Order to Engage. So he gets nothing. And gets to see that there's some problem cards in there for him. this could get spicy. That order to engage is going to be a potential problem for him. I mean, I'm sure he's got a point man, but like, you kill the order to engage, and Joe just says, all right, break Bosch's cover, someone who loves you, get my order to engage back, I'll go get it again, is a little bit rough. Pat goes to grab any card with ROPS. Might be his point man. There's a lot of options there, and frankly, Joe's got a pretty good setup right now. Pat wasn't able to get going quickly enough, and he kind of slowed the roll, so he didn't get jumped by the speeders, but that meant he wasn't doing necessarily a ton of damage, and really still isn't. Like, he's draining for 1. That's not going to win you the game long term. And we see Joe throws away the Honor of the Jedi, which makes perfect sense. You're not using that card. And drains for 1 at the jungle, and we'll see him Hark Seth it. Yep. That's... Joe's just blocking damage right now, and Pat's going to have to figure out a way to start forcing more through, and I'm just not sure how he's going to do that. Like, this could be a problem. I would expect he moves to deploy and tries to overwrite the docking bay at some point just to get the 0 out of his deck as well. And these Rebel Snowspeeders are each forfeit 4, so, like, again, you got 6, 12, 22 power, yeah, plus a Battle Destiny to 10, effectively 13 plus a Battle Destiny, so you're down 9 power there. And you almost have to just be like, all right, I need to drop enough power to offset whatever he's thinking of doing, and draw Battle Destiny enough to create some sort of problem and kill a few speeders. Like, and I don't know. I'm not sure what Pat's line is here. This is a deck that definitely does well against ROPS, and it's very possible Joe's kind of playing this because he said, well, I think Pat's going to play something like ROPS or Hunt Down, both of which this deck can give some decent trouble to. And that's exactly what he ran into, you know. So, and Pat doing a lot of what he can. Like, he went and grabbed a card, now he Janices. So he's going to end up with some pretty good destiny. Like, once he gets through this, he's going to end up basically with just good destiny in his deck, because I'm sure he's grabbing nouns, he's grabbing characters and speeders. But, like, what's he going to do with them? You know, if you're going to start a battle here, I think you drop somebody at the desert and then battle at the docking bay to get that extra +1 and then move everyone to the desert. Like, you don't really care what site Joe sets up on because they're all drain 0. So you're like, all right, fine, set up on a site, see if I care. It's really more a matter of he's got to figure out a way to start doing some damage. And Pat just says, I got no answer right now. I'm going to draw a couple. And I think some of that is he's probably just not wanting to burn the fights he's going to have to make before Order to Engage comes down. Like, you know you're going to have fights here, so instead of starting them now, wait for Joe to put down Order to Engage. You saw he has no more speeders. Like, the worst thing he could throw down would be, like, EPP Luke. And Joe activates everything, so he's not planning on starting a battle necessarily. Let's keep him a little optimism here, which will just let him retrieve a card. It's place it out of play or lose it to, what is it? Yeah, at any time, you place this effect out of play to retrieve 1 force. So, looks like Joe forgot to flaps and is asking in chat if Pat will let him flap. And it looks like Joe attempts the revert. and it is granted. Pat and Joe are friends. You know, they play test together a decent amount. That's one of those things where it's like, look, I just clicked too fast, and everybody has done that more than once. Like that's something we've all done at times. This way he doesn't make that mistake. You know, he doesn't have to get punished. I mean, if Joe would have said, or Pat would have said no, Joe would have had to do some moving around and such to keep his guys around, and he'd have had to do some work, and it would have just sort of changed the texture and the tenor of the game. You know, Pat could have said no, and Joe would have been displeased and moved on. Instead, Pat says, "Yep, that was clearly a mistake. We'll let you do it, and we'll try and move forward from here." We see the order to engage. We say EPP Luke coming down to the docking bay. Pat barriers him, honestly, more just to use the barrier, I think, than anything else. It's not like he was battling there. So this way you just get rid of the barrier. You move the barrier from your hand to your deck. Gives you a Destiny 4, which is a good Destiny to be drawing, you know, at +3 or 4. Because that kills, again, multiple things. You know, you draw a 4 at +4, you're killing Luke and a thing. And there's the point man to cancel order to engage. He does that quickly when Joe doesn't have a way to stop the point man. I expect we'll see let's keep a little optimism here, potentially right away, just to get back that order to engage, because, okay, he chooses not to. Order to engage is probably his win con here, realistically. Like, Pat, without order to engage, Pat can just ignore him, and yeah, it'll be a long game, and it'll be a slog of a game. And frankly, Pat's already down to 20 minutes on his clock. Like, if he's only doing 1 damage a turn, this could get bad. But, I mean, Joe's only got 15 cards down. Joe's got 26 cards total. Pat's got 35 right now. So, because again, this is what I talked about. This speeders decks are real card intensive. Joe is putting a lot of cards on table to do stuff. The timer's relevant to an extent. I think Pat gets ahead of the timer soon enough. Pat's definitely tanked a couple times trying to decide on his plays, and I think it's just sort of I'm playing against speeders. I know I'm going to get jumped at some point. How do I avoid getting jumped, and how do I avoid taking too much damage through stuff? And that's kind of going to be the issue, is how does he avoid getting hurt too badly? Like, you're going to get stung, but can you avoid the huge beatdown? And killing the order to engage actually helps that a lot, because it means you don't have to necessarily start a battle that you're behind in. And Joe may have multiple order to engages, which might be why he didn't. Let's keep a little optimism here. He's going to save that for something he runs only one of, or he thinks is more impactful. Again, I think without knowing what's in Joe's hand, I'd have been real strongly considered grabbing that just because. And Pat's now into play phase. He's got 16 force and 11 in hand. Like, you got to do something here, Pat. And there he drops another sight, which is good. Again, he knows Joe didn't have a lot in hand he can come at him with. So doing something like, there we go, there's Colonel David John. So Spaceport Street, I believe, is everyone moves there for free. Yep, during your move phase, may move free between here and any related site. So you could theoretically move someone over. Probably doesn't need to, honestly. Like, again, this gives him the +4. I think if anything, what we'll see here is Endicott Janice et al. Just move to the desert. And you're willing to let Joe control one Raltier site, but only one. The other thing Pat could be trying to find and sort out is to get a Mara, because Incom is canceled if Pat controls that site. So if he drops like Mara plus a guy on top of those speeders, draws at, +4 or 5, which is, you kill both speeders, you control the site, you kill incom, and now suddenly all those speeders are a lot less scary. That you drop a power and an ability from all of them. But that's a... All right. Pat going Ozzel alone to the Jabba's Palace. All right, along with Tempest got 6. So he's saying, I need to start pushing damage. Here's how I push damage. I'm going to drain for 2 at Jabba's Palace and force you to do something about it. He's got the Fallen Portal, but again, Joe didn't really have a lot of cards in hand to threaten a lot of damage. And we see the move everyone to the desert. Because, yeah, all right, well, I don't really want to fight Luke with Saber. Luke with Saber's going to hit Janice or Lieutenant Endicott. Either way, it makes him forfeit 0, which is bad for you. So you just walk everybody away from it and say, fine, you can have that site and drain for 0 there. Because, again, with the flip side of ROPS saying drains are all -1, Joe's doing exactly 0 damage. And Pat's figuring out, okay, I need to start doing damage. Like, the clock is definitely in Joe's favor right now, but I don't think the clock is bad enough for Pat that he runs out of time. I think it's just something he's got to be a little cognizant of. I don't think he can tank anymore on big decisions, And you did see the Fallen Portal, so a battle at the Hoth-Daki might be bad, but again, like, the Destiny isn't great in Joe's deck necessarily, although speeders are bad. He's got some good Destiny, but, like, it might be one of those things that's still worth the run out. And we see Joe flaps once. Pat says, all right, fine, I'll Janice. And then Joe flaps again. Just to, yeah, if Pat alters 1. I don't necessarily see Pat altering 1. I mean, with Do or Do Not being started, that'd be an expensive loss. Losing that 2 force to do really nothing because you'd have to do it twice would be bad. And Incom is fully immune, so you're not going after that. We see Joe searches with Insurrection, finds nothing because there's nothing there to find. Really just wanted to see exactly what his 2 Destiny were, I think, to decide what kind of battle he wanted to start. Because, again, at that desert there, like, you're up 7 in power, which is nice, but you're really only up 3 because Pat's adding 4 to his Battle Destiny. And odds are Pat's Battle Destiny is going to be at least as good as yours, so you're really only up 3 power, which is Endicott. And Pat's probably costing you 2 speeders. So you can only make that battle so long before you end up way behind. And I think Joe is also seeing that. Like, Joe's looking at this and going, all right, I'm not doing any damage right now. There's a Sand Speeder on top of Colonel David John. So this would be what Pat had to be concerned about, is he's going to get flipped back here. Joe had a couple speeders. That's going to be enough. Like, Colonel David John will kill them both in return. But Pat's going to get flipped back. And he has to control 3 Routier sites to flip, which I don't know if he's going to be able to do. So, and Joe's going to start this battle, and he's going to lose both speeders, and he's actually totally okay with that. Like, Pat's actual best case scenario here is probably that he draws high enough to kill both speeders, but low enough that he might actually have to lose a force. All right, so there we see the battle at the desert. Pat plays Projective Telepathy, really just to make Joe pay a couple more. He's not really trying to do a ton there. I don't love starting there. Like, I think I would have battled with Colonel David John first because you're not clearing that site. There we see the 3 for Battle Destiny because it's -1 with the desert. So he's total power of 20. And there's a 3, which becomes a 7. So, yeah, it's Pat loses Endicott and is perfectly fine with that. And Joe has to lose 7, which is 2 nouns. That's 2 of those snow speeders or the snow speeder and Hark. And I think I would have liked to see him battle Colonel David John first. Like, you're not going to flip back. So you battle Colonel David John and you flip Pat first by controlling 2 Raltier locations. And then you only lose 1 thing. He loses Hark. Okay. That's an interesting loss. So, because, yeah, I think Pat's ideal here would be if he battles against Colonel David John, you say, okay, well, I'm down 1 or 2 in power. You know, you just, as long as you're losing in power, which I think you're going to, and you say, okay, I'll lose a couple. All right, so he's not even battling Colonel David John. He's moving Luke with Saber over in front of the Colonel and picking a few up. I'm not sure I love that line. Like, I understand not wanting to lose the speeders, but I think if you lose the speeders and you flip Pat back, I don't know that Pat can flip again. And long term, that's way better for you. So, because those 2 lone stand speeders against Janice and the DS61, like, you do still, there goes Lando off the top and Master Luke from hand for the drain at Jabba's Palace. And there goes On the Edge off the reserve deck as well. Like, if you can flip Pat back, you can at least start threatening some drain damage. If you keep Pat flipped, you let Pat stay flipped, and Pat has the advantage of he still has a Gick. Like, he still has 1 battle where he doesn't care what you do. He's just going to Gick out of it. Like, I'm just not sure I see a good line here. You know, Pat's going to have to load up, but, like, you're okay with that. So, and I could see absolutely Pat just load, you know, he's got 10 cards in hand and 13 force, and he just went and got something with ROPS. Drop a few guys to the docking bay, move David John over for free, and say go. Like, you're not scared at the desert, and you're not scared anywhere else. Like, this is... I thought Joe was in a good position. I think Joe not flipping Pat back is going to end up being a huge mistake. And there's Palpatine at the Executor docking bay. I don't know why you put him there instead of just throwing him straight to Tatooine. You can't move him to, unless you're going to move him to home 1. Yeah, that's, and maybe he was baiting out the barrier because he did know Joe had the barrier from the Monarch. So maybe he was baiting out the barrier so he can now do something else with it. Because, like, if he could just throw, frankly, any rando at the desert, he can wipe Joe's speeders off of there, move, you know, lose whatever rando he deploys, move Janice and David John over in front of those 2, in front of that pile at the spaceport docking bay. Because all you're really trying to do is avoid EPP Luke's swing. Like, you're fine with whatever, you just don't want Luke swinging. But if that wasn't Pat's play and he just walked into that barrier for no reason, I don't understand putting the Emperor there. All right, so there's evacs at the spaceport docking bay. So he's going to do it this way and just say, hey, my draw is now +5. No matter what I draw, both your Rebel Snow Speeders are dead. And I'm winning that battle. And then move David John over. Like, David John and evacs both forfeit for 7. Like, it's hard to... It's going to be really hard to overflow them. Like, you can win the battle, but you move them over, you're down 15 in power. Like, okay, well, evacs and David John forfeit and cover that, and actually you're not down 15 because you're drawing at +4. So you're really down like 11, which again, they cover and you don't need to worry about. Pat's tanking here a little harder than I think I like. I really think he needs to, he's going to start doing damage. And again, I think that Palpatine should have just gone to Tatooine. There's no reason to put him at the Executor. You weren't going to move him to ROPS. You can't move him to Raltier. There's no difference functionally between Home 1 and Tatooine, except Tatooine's a battleground, so I would have just thrown him to Tatooine and called it a day. So we see the battle at the desert. Pat's going to lose a guy here. Like, there's no... Scout 5 doesn't have any immunity, and instead, Joe burns the It's a Trap, which I think he's okay with. Joe uses the It's a Trap. Pat says okay. Now I think you see Colonel David John walk over to hang out with Officer Evax, because your power is just... Your forfeit is so high there. Like, it gets nasty, and you can also theoretically react over with that walker with our net on it. And because if Joe flaps, he can't move the speeders. So Joe has to then not flap, which means he's not nearly as scary power-wise. Because Joe does only have 4 cards in hand. Like, this is getting close. Yeah, I'm still a little confused by the Palpatine drop. I just don't think that was the right play. And Pat moves, he just swaps the speeders. I guess to get Arnett, who prevents reacts. I just don't think Joe's... I mean, I guess Joe could theoretically react with the sand speeders because they can react to a desert, which is cute, but I just... If Joe flaps, the speeders can't react. If Joe doesn't flap, okay, react away. Like, if Joe doesn't flap, you're just like, all right, fine, react. Like, I'm still going to murder you with Battle Destiny, and there's not much else you can do. So, I'm fine with the move. I think Pat using a couple fours, he doesn't necessarily need to hang on to super particularly. He saved himself 2. He's got 8 cards in hand. I don't think there's anything he's really drawing into that's super impactful here. This is, at this point, the grind part of the game. I'm going to drain you for 3 or 4, and I'm going to force you to figure out an answer through me in space. And I think a lot of it really depends on what Joe does here. Like, if Joe opens the flaps, you got to kind of decide if you want to react with Arnett in the walker, which I believe can move as a react. Let's double check here. React to a forest or end or site. So no, it can't. You could react with Scout 5, but then you're subtracting 1 from your total battle destiny. Although you might be able to do that. Again, if he opens the flaps, if he doesn't deploy anyone, he's not moving anyone. So you don't have to worry about giving up that site. And it might be worth just reacting over with the Scout and DS61-2. You're adding another 6 power there, plus another 6 forfeit from 61-2 alone. And you just go, okay, I'll lose a guy, you'll lose 2. You didn't do anything else, so you don't get to move anyone, and now next turn I'm going to kill all your speeders. So Joe might not be able to flap here. Joe might have to not flap so he can just move some guys, because otherwise he's going to run the risk of just losing a bunch here. Yeah, he'll be able to get him back at some point with Leia. Like, he can do the Bausch, Someone Who Loves You. And he does flap, so that changes the math a little bit for Pat in terms of if he wants to react a guy over. Actually, I don't think it really does. Like, you're not reacting Janice. You're keeping Janice and Arnett and Scout 1 there, and yeah. Joe just moves Luke over and says, okay, I'm going to drain for a bunch. And puts Luke in a speeder. I don't, unless he's gonna then docking bay transit that speeder over in front of somebody. Yep. So he's gonna docking bay transit the speeder over to Tatooine, which is fine. It's still a drain 0, and I still don't necessarily see a ton of upside there. Like, is he going to try and move them in front of Jabba's palace and force Pat to have the answer to the thing? Or is it okay, well, I'll stop you from moving Palpatine there, but Palpatine's just as functional at Home 1. Like, it's more, I would have put him at Tatooine to start, but once you put him at the Executor and you got to move him, you don't really care where you move him. He document transits for free, so send him over to Home 1. Like, I think Pat needs to take the desert here. I think Pat needs to, and Joe saves 3 again, so he might be sitting on another It's a Trap, but Joe's only got 7 cards down. Like, Joe's down to 7 down and 11 in hand, so he's got 18 force. Pat's got 21 down and 8 in hand, so he's got 29. Pat is 10 cards up in force, which is not something you ever hear with ROPS. Like, ROPS is usually running tighter on force because ROPS also puts a pile of cards on table. This is just a even more effective, or even more card intensive deck he's facing. And Pat activated some track to something with Janice. I'm not actually sure what he tracked to there. And we see the drain at Rendley for 1. We lose the signal. Drain at the jungle for 1. He's going to lose Lost in the Wilderness from hand because he's not going to be able to use it. That's why Pat has the walkers at all the different locations. Drains for 1 or 2 at Jabba's palace, and we see the It Could Be Worse. And there's the Hell to Pay to grab the It Could Be Worse. That also means he can't now It's a Trap the battle at the desert. So he does get the reduction through, but it gets grabbed, so he's not going to be able to do anything else with it. Pat searches for Force Lightning to see what's in there before he decides if he wants to use ROPS, because if they're too good Destiny, I could see him battling at both. So he's going to ROPS here. So he's going to take something just to make absolutely sure he clears that desert. And I'm perfectly fine with that play. I think it's a very reasonable play. You're going to clear the desert. You're going to go from there. And that might be why Pat didn't put Palpatine at Tatooine, is there was that Lost in the Wilderness was in hand. You knew it was going to happen at some point. But like, all right, if he loses Lost in the Wilderness to make your Palpatine lost, you go, okay, fine. Like, you still lost a force. Yeah, it stops the continued drain, but it's still effective in that regard. And there, Pat does drop Mara. So Luke is in the speeder as a pilot, which is like, I think I would have dropped Mara on Raltier. Like, I'd have been totally okay. I'd have dropped her at the spaceport street. Like, okay, there was the portal. He misses with the portal. I guess if Pat's got a 4 or better in reserve, he's going to kill Luke and the land speeder. And that's exactly what he is. He's got a 4, so his total battle destiny is going to be 8, which will kill Luke and the speeder. And you don't even care if he kills Mara. Like, and he fails to kill Mara. The 3 does not crack Mara's immunity. That went bad for Joe. And frankly, great for Pat. Like, I do think Joe made a mistake in not getting Luke out. Like, Pat might not make that play if Luke jumps out, just because you do run the risk of getting overflowed, but maybe not. And we see Palpatine move to the Home 1 docking bay. Pat says, I'm going to drain for as much as I can. And I don't know if he's going to pick anything else up. Like, honestly, at this point, even if something goes terribly wrong and you get flipped back, you're kind of okay. And he is going to move Colonel David John and Evax over to the Spaceport Street just to get the. I'll stand in front of 2 speeders instead of 3. Because again, with that +4 to battle destiny, they're effectively battling 0 out. And frankly, Pat's more likely to cause overflow. There we see the Han free and the 5 retrieval. He does that during Pat's draw phase. Oh, excuse me, 10 retrieval because it's low power Han. Um, that's a bunch of force. But again, like, it's a bunch of force. Joe doesn't necessarily have any cards in hand. He's not really threatening a lot. He's going to have to do something. Like, he's going to have to break Bausch's cover and then probably battle Vader. Like, if you move to the Jabba's palace, you risk a trample, which Pat absolutely has. And you're giving up the drain of 2 at the audience chamber. Like, if you battle against Vader, you go, all right, well, he flips me back, but I kill Vader. I don't know. I don't like any option Joe's given himself right here. And Pat has played this pretty darn well. Like, Pat's putting himself in a position to make these questions really hard for Joe to answer because, again, everything Joe wants to do takes a lot of cards. And Joe might be saving that. Pat says Luke costs full force, so there. I do think there was another EPP Luke in Joe's hand, and he can use him, but like, where are you going to go with Luke? Like, wherever you put Luke, you're going to lose him. So are you? I mean, I guess the chance would be, I guess maybe that you go to Spaceport Street with him and hope Pat doesn't have another barrier. Because if he does, you're doing the same thing you did before, which is play dance around. And Joe might just be saying, all right, well, I expect he's going to, is he only leaves 1 in reserve. Joe activates everything. He's only got 6 cards in hand. I don't know I think he's probably just trying to figure out he's going to play something and then he's got to draw and get some speeders back in hand. Like, he's got to get something going. I think he's got a flaps here. Yeah, we'll see the flaps. And I think he'll get a ping of 1 off. So Pat will lose another card. Like, I mean, Pat's got 4 cards in lost pile. He's got an Endicott, a Point Man, a Monarch, and a Prepared Defenses. That's all he's made Pat lose all game. And there he gets the ping, and Pat drops the Coruscant, which is in there because it's a nice Twix, but also there's some decks like Hidden Base that are running Special Edition Light Side Coruscant, which can be a real nasty drain of 3, and if you wait till they get that out and just be like, oh, whoops, now it's not. You know, and there's a speeder on top of Ozzel and Scout 1. And maybe we're just going to see Han move and get in the speeder. He dropped the flaps. Like, he can get back to the Fallen Portal, I guess, and Pat would have to have some sort of answer to still draw Battle Destiny. But, like, again, he's drawing at +4. There's Master Luke, who he paid full freight for. And there's the barrier on Luke, so if he's not going to just start a battle against Mara and clear her. Like, that would have been kind of the hope there, would be either start a battle against Mara and clear her, or use Master Luke, and if it's a 6, you pop her back into hand, although that would be all kinds of ugly. And there's the order to engage coming down again. So now the thing is, he doesn't have a lot of power. Like, there's almost no site where Pat would be like, oh, I don't want to battle here. Like, where are you? If you're Pat, where are you scared to battle here? Mara versus Luke, you go, oh, okay. Yep, and now he's going to move Han over in front of that snow speeder that has to sit there. And before Han can get in, he probably gets a stomp. Like, order to engage is, because Pat's played this so well in terms of just dragging it out, there's nowhere he can set up to be like, oh, you don't want to start a battle. Like, Master Luke is so much less scary than, oh, Pat first says, I'm just going to alter order to engage. See, I don't know that I love that play. Like, now you're losing two. Granted, you've got the cards to lose, and order to engage does go lost. He doesn't have wise advice in play. So you do kill the order to engage still, but like, so what does Pat loses? Boskin Houndstooth from hand. All right, and Blizzard Scout 1. See, I would have liked Blizzard Scout 1 to stay. I would have liked to keep Blizzard Scout 1. But we'll see. Like, again, I don't think I was that scared of order to engage. I'd have been fine with order to engage dropping there. Oh, he does not have the trample. As we see Han get in the snowspeeder. Now, again, unless he's got the portal, and he's got to have the portal, and Pat has to not have, that's where I think Blizzard Scout 2 would have been, or Blizzard Scout 1 might have been good, is like, you get Blizzard Scout 1 and another pilot, and a pilot at Jabba's Palace, and you just go, okay, fine, portal Ozzel, see if I care. Like, truly, see if I care if you portal Ozzel. And he moves the speeders that were on routes here all to Tatooine, but again, he's got no land speed, or they've got no land speed, and he's draining for 0 there. And order to engage is not in play. So I think if I'm Pat, I just go, all right, I'll drain you for 1, 2, 3. I guess 3. Frankly, I think then you battle off the speeders on route here both ways. You just go, okay, I'll battle at the street and I'll lose evacs and kill both your speeders, and I'll battle at the desert and I'll lose probably Arnett and both your speeders. And then Mara runs away. But you just, okay, fine, what are you going to do? Like, how are you causing damage? And I don't think, I mean, he's got 15, he's got 22 cards, so he's actually got the same number of cards as Pat. Pat's got 23. Again, he's going to get drained for 3, so that's going to ping a little bit, but like, Pat's still ahead in this game. Luke and Han are going to create a ping of 2 that's probably not ideal. Like, I think Pat would really like to have some way to kill Han, and I think he needs to, that's by ability 2 in a walker. So you can get around order to engage. And there we see, or not order to engage, you can get around Fallen Portal. And there we see Joe getting back his order to engage by burning the, let's keep a little optimism here. That means he doesn't think he's going to lose Han, or he's got another one in hand. And we see the drain of 1, and we see Incom Corp go from hand. Another drain of 1. And we'll see, almost doesn't matter. And Pat did leave 3, which means he's going to, I think he's going to RAL-Ops to take 1, or he might even not need to RAL-Ops. Like, he might know what his destiny are and just say, I don't need to RAL-Ops. I'm going to kill you everywhere I need to and move on. And he loses Bausch, and then 1 at the jungle, and loses a snowspeeder from reserve. So that's it for drains. Like I said, I can see 3 battles Pat wants to start here. It's just what and where is it? What order is he doing them in, I guess, and how is he staying ahead of the okay, so Pat says no, I'm going to take a card with in the Hands of the Empire, the flip side of ROPS. That means he's only starting 2 battles. One of them's got to be against Han. Like, you're not actually draining for a lot. You can't afford to just take those pings. I think you need a walker. All right, that's cute. Simalu at the Spaceport Docking Bay. is fine. I mean, now you can move Palpatine over there if you want to, but yeah, this is what I think. He needs to clear routes here, and he's going to right here, because now he's drawing at +5. So there's literally no way he does anything but clear these two. So that's a 9 for Battle Destiny. And maybe that's just what he's saying is, look, I can afford the ping of 2. I don't take any drains. Drop back is a 4. I think you lose. Yeah, I think you lose Janice. I don't love it either way. Like, you're okay either way with it. And I think you battle at the other route to your site. Yep. And you just say, okay. Like, I'm taking you completely off route here, so now I can actually start draining decently. And there's another 4, so he draws another 9 for Battle Destiny. So he's not going to overflow anything. There's a 1, which if he'd have done that in the opposite order, he would have lost nothing. He wouldn't have lost Janice. And again, there goes. Yeah. There goes Evax. Exactly what I figured was going to happen. He's all fine there. Like, I'll be honest, I wouldn't actually hate going. I think he's got the Force. He could do Sim to the Hoth docking bay, and then Palpatine to the Spaceport docking bay, and then move Mara away from that whole pile. Or you just leave. Yeah, I don't even think leaving Mara there's. Okay, so he moves Mara in front of the docking bay that way. All right, that works. Like, you're fine with all of this. And that's why he altered the order to engage. Was he could have theoretically left 4 and started a battle against Han, and figured out a way to keep some sort of ability there. Like, he could have put Simalu there to be functionally immune to Fallen Portal. Like, you can't portal Sim and Jan and Ozzel, or the likelihood isn't good. And we see Joe play the signal. He's going to go get his order to engage. We know Pat's got at least one more altar. What's Joe going to do here? Because also, with Pat having one more altar, he still has a Gick. Like, if Joe drops order to engage and moves that pile in front of Mara, Pat can just go, okay, I'll start a battle, I'll lose a couple things, and then, I'll lose Mara and I'll Gick the damage. And now you have to move that pile somewhere, but you've lost a couple ships. Because again, the battle distance is +5. Like, Pat's drawing a 9 or a 10 there, so even if you're moving 5, you move that whole pile, you're losing Luke and a speeder. And if you move them all in front of Sim, now Pat can be like, all right, here's, any random dude, and, start a battle, draw it +5 again, wipe out 3 more things, and, like, Joe's gonna be in a tight spot. And there's the other order to engage, or order to engage again. Pat's certainly going to wait until after the play phase to do anything, although order to engage is unique, so you can't play another one. Even if he had another one in hand, which I don't think he does because he wouldn't have played it that way. And there's Hark Seth going on the speeder at the Tatooine docking bay. Okay. Does that mean he's going to move Han away? Like, if you move Han in the land speeder to Jabba's palace, and I guess you move Luke and the pile of speeders probably in front of Sim, I guess? Like, you're going to have to, maybe move a couple in front of Mara, and then Luke and the speeders in front of Sim, and none of this is great. None of this is great for Pat, or for Joe, in any way, shape, or form. Pat, at this point, really just needs to not run out of time. There's about 8 minutes left on Pat's clock. Joe's got about 16 minutes. I mean, Joe's going to run out of cards before he runs out of time. Life force count, Pat's at 18 down and 2 in hand for 20. Joe's at 15 down and 3 in hand for 18. And we see, okay, so he moves Harksef and Luke and the speeder over. And he moves the other 2 land speeders in front of Mara. here's the kind of kicker here. If Pat knows what his destiny he's looking at here, I mean, there's 3 spots. He's got to start 3 battles, or he's just going to alter order to engage again and say, fine, I'm going to lose the force to not have to start 3 battles he doesn't necessarily want to start. Loses the projective telepathy, or he's going to probably lose the projective telepathy. I think he's fine losing that. Yep. He's down to 1 card in hand. We both know it's a kick, and there went a Sand Whirl, which would have been obnoxious against a main stack, but does nothing against speeders. So Joe's got to save his force to block those drains. So again, he's going to get drained for 1, 2, 3, and he'll pay 2 to block 2 drains. It's really, does he have a Fallen Portal and a good enough destiny to kill Mara? Well, I guess those snow speeders these are the baby ones. They're 4, 4, and, well, 6. So it'll be tough for Mara to kill all 3 of them. You have to draw an 11, which would mean a 6. And I don't know if he's got that. I think if he's got a way to battle on ground, I think you probably kill Han first. Like, you can always just run away from the Hoth docking bay. Like, you made him move to Hoth, you made him do something and split his forces, and you have enough force you can keep doing that at some point. As we see, Civil Disorder from hand, Grappling Hook from hand, and Master Luke from reserve deck. Pat's going to drain and make him Harkseph, which makes sense. Like, it also stops if he's going to barrier or something. You know, that's a strong play. See the Emperor search, so Pat can decide if he wants to go grab a card or what his destiny is to know what he wants to do. You still got 1 more drain of 1 at the Spaceport Street just to force him to Harkseph it again, but like, Pat's got to decide, and I think he's probably tanking a little bit and deciding, okay, all right, so he is going to go get another card with ROPS. What are you getting? There's Simalu peeking at the top card of reserve deck. That's actually very good because it'll let him know if a Fallen Portal. So he moves it to the bottom. So it looks like, my guess is a Fallen Portal would have killed Ozzel. Because I got to think that's the only spot he's going to start a battle. You don't battle at Hoth, you just run away. You're not battling with Sim alone, even drawing at +5. Like, yeah, you could kill some things. All right. That tells me he's got a 6 in there. That's the only way that makes sense, is if he's got a 6 in there, so you battle, you draw the 6, you add 5, makes it 11, and at that, you kill all 3 speeders. Okay. That's cute. I mean, you're immune. If you want to peel 3, I guess, but 10 is 2 of the snow speeders, not 3. All right, so he chooses just to lose Mara and says, okay, I'll make you lose 2 speeders. So he's not trying to cancel income. He just doesn't want to lose the speeder. Doesn't want Joe to be able to move those speeders. Like, Joe's low on cards. You don't want to give him speeders he can do something with. And now I think you got to move Sim away. There's no point in leaving him in front of that spot because it's a drain 0. And I don't think I'd move Colonel David John over. Like, I think I'd rather move Sim away than move the Colonel into it. All right. So we see Ozzel move to the docking bay, and the Walker moved to the docking bay, so they can't. I mean, I guess it's a drain of 0, but like, okay, so you force him to do something at a docking bay, and maybe now he is going to move Colonel David John and just say, look, Colonel forfeits for 7. If I move them over, I'm down 8 in power. Okay, so he does move Sim over, so I don't really understand the moving Ozzel and Tempest 1 Like, if Joe flaps, he just moves everybody from the docking bay transits them all over, and you're good. Unless you're trying to play the long game to move them to Hoth, and all right. I don't love that play at all. Like, I don't know what you're trying to get with Colonel David John there. Like, were you just trying to move some cards, and Pat draws a few? Again, it's match play. You don't want to be... You want to keep your differential as high as possible, but winning is more important than differential. Like, if you just win your matches, win your games, you win your match. So Pat picks a few up. He's got still, I mean, he's got 17 cards to Joe's 15. So he's a couple cards up, and he's got a much more dominating board position. Like, he really does have a great board position, but he is down to 6 minutes. He's not doing a ton of damage. Joe could be, also thinking, hey, if I can just run him out of time here, I'll get this win by whatever. And we see the peel 2. There went a search and destroy. And another walker from hand. We see Sam take a look at the top card of the reserve deck. And he chooses not to place it on the bottom. So he knows what card, he should know what card's on the bottom, I think, when he searched with, so he looked at it last round. And Joe flips and forgot flaps again. I'm assuming he's not going to ask for a revert, and honestly, if I was Pat, I probably would deny it, just because the time issue, like if he does a revert here, it's going to add a chunk of time. Pat doesn't have a lot of time left. Granted, he is running him down, and Joe says it's all good. Flaps wasn't going to start or stop a battle. Like, he's still outpowering Colonel David John by a pile. So you're either forcing the Gick out or you're not. The flaps were pretty much the +2 to forfeit would have been nice, but you're really just counting on Master Luke, and you're going to forfeit Master Luke and a speeder. And they're going to cover 11 or 14, and either way, you've got that covered. And Joe says, I'm not even battle drawing. I'm just going to pick some up. Doesn't move anyone. Doesn't do anything else. And Pat's just got to sit on it. Like, I don't love Pat not moving and trying to be more proactive in going after Han. Like, if he'd have kept that Tempest Scout, he could have dropped Tempest Scout, put Ozzel inside it, and now you can battle Han without fear of Fallen Portal. And you force Joe to not be able to flaps because he's got to keep Han moving around. And we see the drain of 1, home 1 docking bay. Joe loses the signal from hand. Drain of 1 at Brindley. Pat is probably going to win this game. He's avoided taking a beatdown, which is what he needed to do. It's really going to be a question of can he win it by, how much can he win it by? Because he is just going to steady take that ping of 2 from profit. There goes the It's a Trap from reserve deck. I mean, Joe's only got 6 cards down and 5 in hand, and he's blown his retrieval wad. And the drain at the desert, Hark reduces. Should see a drain at the Spaceport Street that Hark will also reduce. And then we'll see a drain of 1 at the Tatooine docking bay. Again, this is really just a what is Joe, what is Pat's plan to do stuff? And Pat doesn't even bother. Okay, Pat actually forgot the drain at the Tatooine docking bay. That was a mistake. Moves all the way to move phase, moves Ozzel and Tempest Scout 6 over to the Hoth docking bay and says go. Pat is, I think, being cognizant of the timer. I do think, yeah, he missed that draw, though. He missed that phase. Yeah, here's a ping of 2. Pat loses the altar from hand because he says he's no longer going to need to, and Imperial Barrier, both reasonable cards, and he's losing from hand. Like, he's got 11 cards down. That's probably about what he wins by here. So we'll see. Joe flaps it up. Probably just does one now. I think I mean, he might do two. I don't think he needs the force. But, like, I'm not sure what his plan is other than that. So, yeah, he just engages one so far. I think he might be thinking of trying to engage the other, and he's low on force. He's only got 6 cards down, so, like, using that second one might impact how he can move things, and that's not great for him. So let's see what he does here. All right, so he drops another Snow Speeder on top of Colonel David John. He is absolutely going to force out the Gick Pat has been sitting on since turn 1. Maybe turn 2. Yeah, I think turn 2. But Pat's sitting on a Gick. He's had it forever. You're going to get you're going to force out the Gick with Colonel David John, and then I think you've got to move guys. You're going to have to move some of them to Hoth just to prevent the, okay, well, here I'm going to blow up your incom. Although at this point, you're not even all that concerned about incom. Like, it's okay, it's 1 power. So here's the battle. It's effectively 32 to 10. I mean, Colonel David John, he's adding 5 to the total battle destiny. So, and Joe can't even draw, which is fine. He doesn't need to draw. So there's an 8 for battle destiny, which is, I expect it'll be Luke and a speeder. And Pat's down by 19. There goes a speeder. Pat loses Colonel David John. Oh, so he goes with 2 speeders. All right. And here's the Gick. So now Pat's got to be a little more cautious because he doesn't have any more Gicks. But, like, what's Joe going to do here? I mean, maybe you Document Transit your guy, you know, like you Document Transit a speeder over to Hoth. But then you're like, you don't have a ton of power suddenly left over. Like, I'm not sure what your plan is here. So let's see. And maybe you don't, and you just say, fine, I'm going to lose that 1 speeder at Hoth. And I mean, you're going to lose power if you do that. You might need to move someone over just to stop Pat from actually creating overflow. Like, he's at 6 power, you get 10 power plus a battle destiny to your 5. Yeah, you forfeit for 4, so you're down the battle destiny plus 1. Like, that's not a good thing either. Yeah, Pat, now I'm going to have to be cautious. I think he does, but I think he managed to hold the Gick long enough. Joe doesn't have enough to really do a lot to him besides what he's already done. And that's a good thing for Pat. Like, Pat has burnt Joe down to the point where he needs to be a little bit cautious, but there's only so much Joe can throw at you with 6 cards down and 4 in hand. And I think Joe's kind of doing that math as well and figuring out who do I move to Hoth? Like, do I move Luke in the Snow Speeder just to make sure I don't get incom lost, and then Hark still draws Battle Destiny? Like, what's your play here? And once you move them, Hark no longer cancels the drains. So suddenly Pat's now draining for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to your profit of 2. Like, and I think Joe's probably thinking those things through. I feel like he's kind of tanking here a little bit, where I think you should have already made that decision. Like, you sort of knew what was going to happen in the battle up there. You're going to lose a couple things. And now it's where and how am I moving guys And, you know, Joe's tanking pretty hard for what late game is sort of the decision should already kind of be made. Like you're kind of stuck with you're not in a great situation. You're trying to figure out how you can maximize differential, but because all you can do is docking bay transit, I guess his option is either transit them to Hoth or transit them away from Hoth and lose income. And if you transit them away, the only spot you're going is to Raltier because you can't drain anywhere else. And if you lose income and you just transit that Rebel Snowspeeder to Tatooine, Pat just says, okay, well, I cancel income, I drain you for one at Hoth, and then I move my guys to Tatooine to follow you. Like, what are you going to do? And Joe, all of that I think is in Joe's head and figuring out what he wants to do here. Because none of his options are great. You know, because again, if you move them away, you're eating 2 more drains. And at that point, Pat's burnt your hand plus a card out of reserve. And you're kind of out of things to do. Like you can cause a profit damage. Like you can take this a little bit longer. And yeah, Joe's thinking hard. You can make this a little bit closer. You know, Pat's going to win this game. He's not going to win it in a walk. He's going to win it he's got 11 cards down right now, and he's going to eat a little bit of profit damage, a couple more turns of it probably. You know, so Pat will win by 7-ish right now, I think, depending a lot on what. And there we see Pat gives a search, which gives up a verify, which doesn't really matter, but it does reset the 5-minute action clock that Joe was actually getting a little close to. So Joe picks a couple up. All right, so Joe is basically saying, I have a fallen portal, and all right. So Pat is wondering a little bit, and I think Pat's got to figure out okay, what are we doing here? Pat, you're kind of limited on time. Don't be all chummy in chat here. So we'll see drain of 5 here, which, like I said, is going to put Joe down to probably 1 in hand, and there goes a Lando from hand. Drain at the home one docking way, drain at Rendley. See someone who loves you go away. Drain at the jungle. Gets rid of a barrier because he didn't have a force to play it anyways. Drain at the desert. Gets rid of the it could be worse. That's already grabbed. And drain at the city. There's the Lost in the Wilderness, which is fine. Like, okay. I mean, Lost in the Wilderness is still a lost card. Like, I guess it theoretically means that Pat now has to do something to avoid giving up the flip. But I'm not even sure if you care about the flip. Like, in all honesty, like, I guess you could land Zuckuss and Fenson. Joe's got 1 card in hand. You're not doing anything else there. You land them at Spaceport Street and get out, and you go, okay, you're not draining at routes here anyways. Yeah, it adds +1, but you don't really care. You went and grabbed a card with in the hands. I gotta imagine it's something to just drop. All right, so he drops Cabal at the street. I mean, do you have an answer for Fallen Portal? Are you just gonna, like... Pat has played this very passively in terms of just running and scared of Portal. So there's the battle at the docking bay, and Joe says GG. So, yep, that is going to be game there. So Pat will win by 10. Yep, Battle Destiny is 6-10, so Pat is up by 11. Yep, so Pat will win by 10. And Pat has 22 in Lost, Joe ends up with 34 in lost. So Pat is in a good spot, good enough spot. Like he's got a chance. You always want to win. So Joe is certainly not out of it. 10 differential is not a killer. Congratulations to Pat winning the first game of this match. Just watching to see if they say they want to run game 2 right away. That would be, yeah, Pat, I know there was talk and Joe said he couldn't go that late. So looks like they're not going to run game 2. Just wanting to see, waiting to see an answer before I shut down the stream. Either way, congratulations to Pat Johnson, PMJ, winning game 1 of his top 8 Retro GEMPC match. Still just waiting to see an answer from Joe in terms of, yes, I want to play another time, or you know what, let's just roll this out. Okay, Joe just left the room, so I'm going to assume they are not getting this played. I'm going to stop the stream. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all had fun. Have a great night.